Yes, sir! Cleveland Cavaliers news, boys. Andre Drummond trade rumors. The Cavaliers need more depth, especially wings. So why do I say this, boys? As you all know, Cavaliers came off to a hot start, 3-0 to start the season, but ever since then, they haven't been able to put a win back-to-back for a while now. Every time they win a game, they lose the next game. They haven't been able to have back-to-back wins since they came out with a 3-0 win streak. Right now, they are currently, I believe, 7th in the East, standing at 6-7, one game below 500, and I think there are a couple things that the Cavs need to do to improve. One of those things being adding more depth. So how can they do this, guys? By using their best trade piece available, which is Andre Drummond, who is on an expiring deal this year. So what Andre Drummond can do for a team is if a team is ready to win now and all they need is that center presence, Andre Drummond is exactly the type of guy you need to make that trade. If you're a team that thinks they can win now or a team that's on the verge of the playoffs and just needs that center to push them into the playoffs, Andre Drummond is the piece for you. There's several teams who would benefit from Andre Drummond, and I came up with a trade that's going to work for the Cavaliers and the other team. So Drummond is the best trade chip that the Cavs have right now. The Cavs are the slowest team in the NBA. They're 30th or 29th in pace. They have the worst offense in the NBA. They're 30th in offensive rating. These are things we need to improve if we want to have a chance to be at all competitive this season. If the Cavaliers want to make a push for the play-in or the playoffs, they need to improve their pace and they need to improve their offense. So this trade is going to do both those things. After they made the trade for Jarrett Allen is going to be a great piece to build around for the future. That made Andre Drummond expendable. So now the Cavs can trade Andre Drummond and not worry about the center position being empty because they have Jarrett Allen. So what trade do I have in mind? As I said, the Cavaliers need more depth, especially at 3 and D positions, as the Cavs, the way they're currently constructed, is kind of like CJ McCollum and Damian Lillard on the Blazers with Colin Sexton and Darius Garland in the backcourt. You have offensive-minded guards. They need defensive-minded wings that can also shoot threes. That's just the best configuration when you have offensive-minded guards. The Blazers have been doing this, so they signed Robert Covington and Derrick Jones Jr. Those are their 3-and-D wings. They're trying to make it work. This is the trade I have in mind for the Cavs. So the Cavs would trade with the Hornets. The Cavs would send over Andre Drummond and Kevin Porter Jr., because we all know Kevin Porter Jr. is about to get traded after he had that big outburst in the locker room with Kobe Altman. So the Cavs sent to the Hornets Andre Drummond and Kevin Porter Jr. In return, the Hornets would send over Cody Zeller, Miles fucking Bridges, Malik Monk, a first-round pick, and a second-round pick. So why does this trade make sense, boys? This trade makes sense because the Hornets, they get a center. For the past few years, the Hornets have liked to build themselves as a team that has a traditional center. They don't play small ball. They like playing with a traditional center, a guy that can rebound and attack on second chance points. That's exactly what Andre Drummond does for you. It makes perfect sense there. Andre Drummond is a guy that's looking for a big contract this offseason. The Hornets, they don't really attract free agents. They just signed Gordon Hayward. It makes sense for them to go all in on Andre Drummond. They got a young star in LaMelo Ball. They can get something going with that. Adding Kevin Porter Jr. to the trade just makes sense because with the Hornets, adding Malik Monk and Kevin Porter to trade just makes sense because both guards are unhappy in their current situations. Kevin Porter Jr. had an outburst with the team with Kobe Altman. He's going to get traded. Malik Monk has made it known to the coach and the GM several times that he is not happy with his playing time. He wants more playing time, and he's not happy in Charlotte. He feels like he's not getting enough opportunity. So it makes sense to give both these guards a fresh start in a new environment where they can contribute to each team. Both guards are talented. They're just not happy in their situation. Makes sense in that sense for Charlotte. Now for the Cavs, it makes so much sense, boys. The Cavs get in return 3 rotation pieces in Miles Bridges, Malik Monk, and Cody Zeller. If they want, they can flip Cody Zeller down the line for a few second-round picks or even a late first-round pick because they already have multiple centers on the team. Jarrett Allen, their center of the future, JaVale McGee, they have Dean Wade, and they have another guy. I can't remember his name. He's on the lower end of the roster. He doesn't get much minutes. But they have multiple centers on the team that they can use already. So it only makes sense that they get rid of Drummond as he is on an expiring deal and looking for big money. Jarrett Allen is the center of the future. They get 3 pieces that they can use. Malik Monk, Miles Bridges, and Cody Zeller. Cody Zeller can be flipped for picks And they also get draft assets in the trade. So they get a first-round pick to help them build their team out in the future, and they get a second-round pick that they can use in a trade package if they want to. This trade just makes sense for the Cavaliers because they get an athletic 3-and-D wing in Miles Bridges who can play the 3 or the 4. He's a low post threat. He's a corner shooter. He's a three-point shooter. He's athletic as fuck. Would easily become the most athletic person on the Cavaliers. And the Cavaliers need athleticism because, as I told you, they have the worst offensive rating and the slowest pace in the league. Adding Miles Bridges will boost the pace up as he can get fast break outlets from Darius Garland and Colin Sexton. Makes sense in that point. You get Malik Monk. He's a fantastic three-point shooter, has a lot of potential in this league. We've seen him score 50 points when he was in college and in high school and shit like this. So he still has potential. It makes sense for the Cavs to take a chance on him as things have gone sour with Kevin Porter Jr. So that's my trade idea, boys. It works for the Cavs, works for the Hornets. Let me know, what do you guys think the Cavs should do with Andre Drummond? In your opinion, what do you think the Cavs should do with Andre Drummond? Let's talk about it in the comments. If you guys enjoyed this video, make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel. We do new NBA videos every week. Happy Wednesday, boys. Let's go.